The writer of this story says that due to the nature of the encounter, she prefers to remain anonymous, but instead uses the pen name Alex. On September 13th of 2016, Alex is driving up the Bighorn Mountains outside of Buffalo, Wyoming. Just like every other trip, she packed accordingly. 2 bottles of water, 6 Nutri-Grain bars, and a loaded handgun. And she drove up to this area 4 or 5 times a week, never worrying about ghost stories or monsters. As far as she knew, these mountains were mostly harmless, with the exception of some predators that are rarely seen and the weather. But something in her changed on September 13th. Instead of going to her usual neck of the woods, she went to a remote campsite known as Hettinger, about 15 miles outside of town. It's a beautiful place where if you cross the fence, you can get up to a peak where you can see for miles. And as she's looking out over the majestic snow-covered landscape, she sees a tall, slender figure marching through the blanket of snow. Now, normally she would just ignore it as a hunter on the move, but Hettinger was pretty far away from any known hunting areas. And to this day, she wishes she would have just packed up her things and left right then. She wishes she had never peeked through her binoculars. But sometimes, knowing is the only safe option. And Alex says she will never let herself forget that moment. The moment she peers through the cold glass over the winter plateau. The moment she focuses her lenses and the figure becomes clear. And she drops behind the rocks. She is 1,000 feet away or more, hidden by a rock and within the tree line. But it's looking at her, as if it can see her. But that's impossible for a human. But then again, this thing, whatever it isn't human. And Alex peeks back up over the top of the rock without her binoculars to take another look. And it's just standing there, sniffing the air, looking at her. Her heart sinks and she can't move. She is frozen in fear. But she looks around her and sees that about 200 feet behind her is a small rock cave, big enough to squeeze into and deep enough to hide in the dark. So crouching down, she slowly inches her way backwards toward the entrance to the cave. And just before she's at the cave entrance, she straightens up a little bit to take one last look, and it's sprinting towards her. Alex moves as fast as she can into the cave and tucks herself in. And the moment she makes it, the creature's now standing exactly where she had just been standing. Its skin looks damp and gray, and it has really long hands with really long fingers to match that end in big, sharp, dagger-like claws. And she moves her hand to cup her mouth to cover her breathing, which is out of control. But as she moves her hand, a little rock tumbles to the frozen ground. And she looks down at the rock and snaps her head back up to see its cold eyes peering into the darkness of the cave, searching. It's almost as if it can't see her, but it knows something is there. And Alex stands as still as a statue, with her breath stuck in her chest. And it reaches in, groping around, and it almost finds her backpack. And after about 5 minutes of forever, it seems to give up and go back to just sniffing the air. And she waits there in shock, the suffocating weight of fear bearing down on her with every passing moment. Now the cave entrance quickly gets dark as night starts to fall, and the creature finally wanders off. And Alex waits a little longer to poke her head out, but when she finally does, she takes a look around and sees nothing. Like really nothing. Not only is the creature gone, but there are no footprints or tracks or anything that show it was even there. Well, she decides it is time to go, and she cautiously leaves the protection of the cave, watches her footsteps to make sure she's not making any noise, and makes her way back down to her car. And she even uses her key to unlock the door instead of using the button lock. She gets in and she sinks down and she takes one last look. She doesn't see anything. And Alex finally gets up the guts to actually start the car, puts it into reverse, and starts to exit the parking lot so she can drive down the road that will take her to the main highway. And she's just about turned around when she sees it. And it is as tall as the trees, and it is staring at her. And she hits the gas, and the car starts fishtailing on the frozen pavement. But she manages to get it going straight again and keeps driving. And as she reaches the main road, she looks in her rearview mirror and she sees that the thing is following her and keeping up. And she looks back at the road and keeps her eyes there, just focusing on driving and not crashing. And after a few miles, she looks in the mirror again and it's gone. And to this day, Alex has not been back, not even to that region of the mountains. And since that day, she has spent a lot of time figuring out what that thing was. And she found several myths about the creature and its origins. And her advice? Stay safe and know that the world is far more vast than we know. Looking for that next creepy fix? Go check out this one. And we will see you again on the In-Between.